Have you ever found yourself in a quiet moment, perhaps late at night, or perhaps in the middle of a bustling crowd, and a pervasive, uncomfortable feeling begins to creep in? A gnawing sense that something is fundamentally wrong with you. It's not just a bad mood or a temporary dip in confidence, it's that deep, insidious whisper, sometimes a roar, in your mind telling you that you are inherently flawed, not good enough, not smart enough, not lovable enough, not worthy of the good things in life, or even of God's love. This isn't true humility. It's the suffocating grip of self-hatred, a corrosive force that eats away at your joy, sabotages your potential, and isolates you from genuine connection with others and with the divine. It's the constant, relentless self-criticism, the inability to forgive yourself for past mistakes, or the overwhelming conviction that you are somehow beyond repair. This silent epidemic of self-hatred is rampant in our modern world, often mistaken for virtue, when in reality, it's a heavy spiritual chain preventing us from fully living, loving, and embracing the abundant life we are called to. But what if I told you that one of the most brilliant, witty, and surprisingly joyful minds of the 20th century, G.K. Chesterton, the master of paradox, the brilliant author of orthodoxy, and the beloved Father Brown mysteries, had a radically different, profoundly liberating take on self-hatred? What if he argued that it isn't humility at all, but quite the opposite, a peculiar and often debilitating form of pride or ingratitude? And what if he showed us, with his characteristic blend of logic and wonder, how God doesn't just tolerate our self-hatred, but actively, miraculously transforms it into something beautiful, something full of grace, purpose, and profound joy? Prepare to have your understanding of yourself, your perceived flaws, and God's unconditional, transformative love for you utterly flipped on its head. Join me as we uncover Chesterton's profound and liberating wisdom on why hating yourself is often an act of ingratitude towards the Creator, and how true grace invites us to embrace ourselves, not out of arrogant self-love, but out of a deeper, more joyful recognition of God's magnificent handiwork. To truly grasp Chesterton's revolutionary perspective on self-hatred, we must first understand the man himself and the extraordinary intellectual and spiritual journey that shaped his profound insights. Gilbert Keith Chesterton was a colossal figure, both physically and intellectually. Born in 1874, he lived through an era of profound intellectual and spiritual ferment. As a young man, he grappled deeply with the prevailing philosophical currents of his time. The rise of atheism, the pervasive fin de siècle pessimism, the perceived decline of traditional morality, and a general sense of cosmic meaninglessness. He flirted with nihilism, spiritualism, and profound existential questions that left him on the brink of despair. He knew intimately what it felt like to be lost, to question the very fabric of reality, and to feel an overwhelming sense of absurdity about existence. Yet, out of this intellectual and spiritual crucible, Chesterton found his way to a robust, joyful, and deeply logical Christianity. His conversion was not an emotional surrender, but a rigorous intellectual journey, a rediscovery of common sense, wonder, and the profound, almost scandalous truth embedded in Christian doctrine. For Chesterton, the truth of Christianity wasn't merely comforting, it was exhilaratingly logical, paradoxically profound, and utterly practical in addressing the deepest longings and confusions of the human heart. This personal odyssey from internal chaos to profound peace was central to his understanding of human nature, including the phenomenon of self-hatred. Chesterton saw self-hatred not as a virtue, nor even as genuine humility, but a peculiar and often debilitating form of pride, or, more precisely, ingratitude towards the divine act of creation. He argued with his characteristic wit and penetrating insight, why do we hate ourselves? Often, it's because we fail to meet our own impossibly high standards. We judge ourselves against an ideal, find ourselves lacking, and then condemn ourselves. But who sets those standards? Who is doing the judging? We are, and in doing so, we are essentially placing ourselves, our own limited judgment, above the very act of our creation. It's a subtle form of spiritual narcissism, an obsessive focus on our own perceived flaws and failures that blinds us to a greater, more fundamental reality, that we are created beings, and that being created, brought into existence by a loving God, is in itself a miracle worthy of profound, unending gratitude. Chesterton famously argued that true humility isn't thinking less of yourself, it's thinking of yourself less. It's not about wallowing in your flaws, but acknowledging your place in the grand, wondrous design of the universe. When we hate ourselves, we are, in a subtle yet significant way, despising the very handiwork of God. We are rejecting a gift, a masterpiece, however imperfect we perceive it to be. Imagine a magnificent artist who creates a unique, intricate sculpture. It may have certain textures or imperfections, perhaps some rough edges, but it is crafted with immense intent, skill, and love. Now imagine the sculpture itself looking upon itself with contempt, wishing it were something else, judging its own form as worthless, declaring itself a failure. This, Chesterton would say, is precisely akin to self-hatred. It's an insult not to ourselves, but to the Creator who sculpted us into being. It's an act of spiritual ingratitude. For Chesterton, the Christian truth about humanity is utterly revolutionary. We are created in the imago Dei, the image of God. Even though humanity is fallen and stained by sin, that original divine imprint, that inherent goodness, that spark of the divine, is never entirely erased. We are not cosmic accidents. We are purposeful creations. Furthermore, the incarnation, the staggering truth that God became human in Jesus Christ, further validates human nature beyond anything we could have imagined. It tells us that our very being, our bodies, our minds, our emotions, our human experience are not only good enough for God to create, but good enough for God to become. In Christ, God embraced and sanctified human flesh, confirming its profound worth. Consider Chesterton's famous declaration in Orthodoxy: "The most sensational thing about God is that He is. The most sensational thing about man is that he is made in the image of God." He found endless wonder in the sheer existence of things, the profound miracle of being itself. He famously advised, "Be happy in your human shape, however ungainly. It is the shape that God chose for you." He saw the joy not in some abstract perfection, but in the specific, unique existence of each person, each leaf, each stone. Self-hatred, by focusing solely on our deficiencies, misses the profound Chesterton joy of merely existing, of being made, and of being loved by our Maker. It is a profound failure of wonder. So, how does God transform this self-hatred into grace? It's not by telling us to try harder or be better or to fix ourselves first. It's through the radical, unconditional, and utterly unearned gift of grace itself. Grace is God's divine favor, His transforming power, freely given, not based on our merit or our perceived worthiness. When we are caught in the grip of self-hatred, we are trapped in a cycle of earning, trying to fix ourselves, to become worthy of love or acceptance. We create an internal ledger of our failures, attempting to atone for them through self-punishment or constant striving. But grace steps in and says, "You are loved, you are accepted. Not because you are perfect, not because you have earned it, but because I am perfect love and I created you. I have redeemed you." This is where the transformation happens. When we truly begin to grasp that God's love isn't conditional upon our perfection, but is given in spite of our imperfections, the suffocating burden of self-hatred begins to lift. It's a shift from an internal, self-condemning gaze to an outward, grateful gaze towards the giver of all good things. True humility, Chesterton shows us, is not a miserable self-abasement, a constant groveling, but rather it is a joyous recognition that we are dependent on God, that our existence and all good things come from Him. This recognition liberates us from the impossible, exhausting task of justifying our own existence, and instead allows us to live thankfully, to be available for God's purposes, and to see ourselves as beloved children, not as broken projects for continuous improvement. We stop trying to be God in judging ourselves and instead become who we are, His creations, beloved and called. Chesterton, the champion of paradox, understood that Christian joy isn't about being happy despite suffering or imperfection, but often precisely because of how God redeems and transforms suffering and imperfection. He famously wrote, "Joy, which is the most Christian of all things, is more than mere happiness. It is not just about feeling good, but about seeing the goodness in everything, even in the struggle." This extends to our flaws. When we offer our imperfections to God, not in self-loathing, but in humble admission, His grace doesn't just cover them, it often uses them, transforms them, or reveals a deeper strength, compassion, or spiritual insight forged in the crucible of our weaknesses. The very things we despise about ourselves can become pathways to deeper dependence on God, greater empathy for others, and a profound appreciation for the beauty and mystery of grace. It's the ultimate divine alchemy, turning the lead of our self-contempt into the gold of His glory. So, how does Chesterton's profoundly liberating perspective apply to your life, right here, right now, as you listen to these words? For many of us, the voice of self-hatred is a constant, unwelcome companion, a shadow that follows us, even into our prayers. It can manifest in countless ways, often subtly, insidiously. Perhaps it's perfectionism, the relentless, exhausting pursuit of an impossible ideal, leading to constant disappointment in yourself, never feeling done or good enough. Every small mistake feels like a catastrophic failure, fueling a vicious cycle of self-condemnation. You strive for an ideal you can never reach and then hate yourself for failing. Or perhaps it's imposter syndrome, feeling like a fraud, that you're not truly qualified or deserving of your successes, your position, or the love and respect you receive. You live in constant fear of being found out, believing that any achievement is merely luck or deception, not a reflection of your true worth. For many, it manifests as body image issues, a deep, often visceral dissatisfaction with your physical appearance, leading to self-punishment through extreme diets or exercise, avoidance of social situations, or a pervasive feeling of being unattractive or unlovable because of your physical form. Then there's the heavy burden of lingering guilt and shame, an inability to forgive yourself for past mistakes, sins, or failures, no matter how much you've repented, apologized, or tried to make amends. You replay these moments endlessly, punishing yourself long after God has offered forgiveness. Or it might simply be a general, pervasive sense of unworthiness, an underlying, nagging belief that you're simply not good enough to be truly loved, to succeed, to experience true joy, or to be used by God for any significant purpose. This can lead to self-sabotage, withdrawing from opportunities, or settling for less than what God intends for you. Chesterton invites us to confront these feelings with a simple yet profoundly radical truth. These are often distorted reflections of truth, not truth itself. They are the lies that keep us trapped in a self-imposed prison. So, how can we begin to transform self-hatred into grace, following Chesterton's joyful and liberating path? The next time that voice whispers, "You're worthless," or "You failed again," don't just accept it. Pause. Ask yourself, is this true humility? Or is it a form of pride, an excessive, self-obsessed focus on my own perceived failures? Is it an insult to the Creator who made me, who finds wonder in my very existence? True humility, Chesterton would say, is not about putting yourself down. It's about putting yourself in perspective as a beloved, if imperfect, creation of a perfect God. It's about remembering the sheer miracle that you are. Practice radical gratitude for mere existence. Chesterton found joy in the mundane, in the sheer miracle of being. He celebrated the splendid sanity of existence. Look around you. Look at your own hands, your ability to think, to feel, to experience the world, to breathe. Can you find profound gratitude for the simple, astonishing fact that you are, that you exist, that God chose to bring you with your unique personality and gifts into being? Start with the small, everyday miracles of life. This radically shifts your focus from what you lack or what you deem imperfect to the infinite bounty of what you have been given. Embrace your madeness as a divine act. You are not a random accident, a cosmic statistical anomaly. You are meticulously designed, fearfully and wonderfully made by a loving, intentional God. Your unique quirks, your inherent strengths, even the very struggles and weaknesses that are part of your journey, they are all part of the complex, beautiful, and purposeful tapestry of your being. God doesn't make mistakes in creation. He doesn't create trash. Your inherent worth is not something you earn through performance or perfection. It is a foundational gift given at the moment of your creation. You are a masterpiece in progress, loved from the outset. Accept God's grace as unearned and undeserved. This is perhaps the hardest, yet most profoundly liberating step. Grace is not a reward for good behavior, not a prize for finally fixing yourself. It is a free, unmerited gift. You don't have to clean yourself up, become perfect, or overcome your self-hatred before coming to God. In fact, that very attempt to earn His favor is what traps us. You come as you are, broken, flawed, hating yourself, burdened with guilt, and God's grace meets you there, transforming your heart and mind. It's not about earning love. It's about accepting the boundless, extravagant love that's already offered, already poured out for you. The more you truly understand and accept God's unconditional love and forgiveness, often a lifelong process, the less power self-hatred will hold over you. Look outward, not inward, as an act of humility. Chesterton was a master of joys of externality. He was utterly delighted by the world, by other people, by common things, by the very strangeness and beauty of existence. Self-hatred is inherently inward-focused, a self-obsession, even if it's a negative one. True humility and genuine joy come from looking outward, loving God with all your being, serving others with a generous heart, engaging with the world's wonders, and appreciating its astonishing diversity. When your focus shifts from your own perceived inadequacies to the vast, glorious creation around you, and to the needs of others, the suffocating grip of self-hatred miraculously loosens. It is in losing ourselves in the service of others that we often find our true, grace-filled selves. Remember, God's love isn't based on your performance, your perfection, or your perceived worth. It's based on His immutable nature, which is love itself. He doesn't want you to hate what He has created and redeemed. He wants you to embrace the truth of who you are in Him, a beloved child, a unique and precious soul, called to live a life of abundant joy and profound purpose, not a life of tormented perfectionism. This radical acceptance of God's grace is not only the beginning of true peace, but the wellspring from which authentic humility and joy can blossom, transforming the deepest currents of self-hatred into a magnificent river of gratitude and purpose. The journey from the darkness of self-hatred to the liberating light of grace is a deeply personal one, but it is also a journey we are never meant to take alone. Chesterton's paradoxes offer a profoundly liberating truth. True humility isn't found in tearing ourselves down or wallowing in our perceived failures. It's found in humbly and joyfully accepting the miraculous gift of our own existence and the boundless, unconditional love of our Creator. It's about being delighted by what God has made, including you. I want to hear from you. Have you struggled with the insidious voice of self-hatred, and how has this message from G.K. Chesterton resonated with your experience? What particular Chestertonian insight or paradoxical truth do you find most challenging, yet most liberating in your own journey towards self-acceptance and grace? What practical steps have you taken or will you take to move from self-condemnation to God's transforming grace? Share your thoughts, your struggles, and any personal breakthroughs or aha moments in the comments below. Let's create a community of hope, encouragement, and shared wisdom, reminding each other that we are beloved, fearfully and wonderfully made, and called to live in the freedom of God's grace. If this message brought you comfort, offered a new perspective, or simply sparked a flicker of hope in your heart, please consider sharing it with someone else who might be battling self-hatred or wrestling with their own sense of unworthiness today. Your share could be the very spark of hope they need. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel for more deep dives into faith, timeless wisdom, and the transformative power of spiritual truths that can illuminate our paths and truly change our lives. Thank you for being here, and may you find profound joy and liberation in embracing the beautiful, imperfect, and utterly beloved person God created and redeemed you to be.